Ready? Ellen, welcome to the show. Your new picture, Angel Heart from TriStar. A brilliant picture that really conveys creeps subtly without kind of, you're going more for montage rather than monsters, and it works beautifully. In terms of putting the picture together, you adapted the Hjortsberg novel. What was the process involved?
Well, I was originally sent it, I think when it first was published, and the thing about being in England is you always get things last, so by the time you try to get it, it's always lost in the old Hollywood machinery. And I think different people owned the rights. Robert Redford was one of the people who owned the rights. And it was reintroduced to me again just 2 years back. And I'd always liked the book. And also, I hadn't really written my own original screenplay for a long time. By original, I mean even adaptation, but I mean I'd sort of rewritten other people's things. So I thought it would be rather nice to get back to doing that. I've tried to do different genres with each film, and this was a classic Raymond Chandler detective story, but it's also about the supernatural. So in a way I had two genres in one. So that's what intrigued me, was the fusion of the two things, really.
So you had actually worked on previous adaptations of the novel?
Yeah, I mean, I started out as of this particular novel. You mean? No, I was not involved in those. I think they found it was quite a tough nut to crack, actually, as a novel, as most first-person novels always are. You know, in so much happens inside the person's head. From the point of view of exposition, you have to put it into dialogue, and to make the lead character actually sympathetic when you're considering actually what has happened. So those were the difficulties, and I suppose those are the reasons why people like Robert Redford probably couldn't find their way around it. But it was just interesting for me, just because of the two genres and the fusion of the two.
What kind of changes did you make from the novel?
Characterization is the most important. I moved the story away from being all in New York to being half in New York and half in New Orleans. That was for very selfish reasons, in that I didn't really, it's kind of difficult to do, to give something a cinematic edge now in New York. It's the world, everywhere you look there's like gaffer tape on the floor where somebody's put their camera. It's kind of hard, you find a really wonderful location here and then suddenly you see the Polaroid film from the film that's been there from before. So really it was for those silly reasons. Also, a lot of the actual leads within the novel itself went down to New Orleans, and I think it was a way for me to open it up and to just give a different look more than any other reason. Those are basically the things that I changed. The heart of it I kept the same, although I did change the title.
Some of the visual motifs, the gates, the fans, was that something you incorporated into it?
Yeah, that was something that I'd got from that wasn't in the book. The fan I used as a portent of death each time. It was just an image that I kept seeing everywhere in New Orleans, and I used it even here in New York. I've always been fascinated by just the graphic shapes that happen when you put light behind fans, and it happened to be a couple of times within a couple of the murders within the story, and then it sort of developed from there.
It's almost that kind of symbolism, kind of like the original Scarface, where in the Vox version, each murder is marked with some kind of X that it blends in there.
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, sometimes you do things without ever knowing quite why you're doing them, subconsciously. I knew it was an image that I was repeating, and there was something quite macabre about it, and I couldn't say why. And in the end, it's totally aesthetic thing, really. I mean, there's no real intellectual justification for it, except that cinematically it works, and sometimes you never quite know why.
Something that's so striking about all of your films, really, is the kind of visual and audio design. I mean, your pictures really seem designed, and then a great deal of care and art goes into the making of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do. I mean, a lot of people do that, other than me, of course. I'm the one who gets all the credit for it, ever since the French invented the auteur theory. And of course, directors are the ones who do the interviews, so we get all the credit. But a lot of very good people do it. I mean, wonderful editors and sound editors. And every tiny little element has had a lot of care put into it. It's nice when people notice the difference. Often people don't. Critics never do, of course, because their stock in trade is words. And that's why they like foreign movies, I think, because they like seeing the subtitles, because they prefer a good read to seeing a good movie. But it's nice now and again when it's appreciated, that just the sheer craft that has gone into the films. Yeah.
Angel Art was put together independently by Carol Co.
Yes, I wrote the script in England independently before even Karoko were interested in it, and went to them and they said yes. I mean, they'd made rather a lot of money from Rambo, so I'm not proud. I'll take anybody's money. You know, there's no such thing as clean money in Hollywood anyway.
The acting in the film is also quite remarkable. Something about Mickey Rourke that really comes through is how, for a change, he's very internal in this picture, as opposed to some of his other films where he seems very almost mannered and very external. How did you find working with him?
Very good experience. I mean, he's very much his own man. He hates you to even think that he cares, really, and it's kind of it's charade in a way, because he really does care. He has a lot that he has to offer. As a director, in the end, it's often taking things out rather than putting things back in. And no director can actually can create a performance. All you can do is to provide an atmosphere, an environment, excuse me, where the actor can be of their best, really. And I think that's all I did for him, was for him to trust us and everybody around, whoever that might be, you know, the whole crew, to really do as well as he could do.
His revelation sequence at the end is quite powerful.
Yeah. Well, I think we did that towards... I always try and shoot in sequence anyway, so that as an actor starts to develop within the role, then they're obviously comfortable because of work that's been done in previous scenes, so they understand where they are at any given point. And we did that right at the end. And I think he was quite confident about the work that he'd done, particularly the scenes that he'd done with Robert De Niro. So I think he was quite happy with himself, and therefore ready to give a little more, you know. And again, it's to do with trust. If an actor trusts the director, and more importantly, trusts the crew around them, then they'll give of their best. In the end, as I say, the actor does it, not the director. All the director says is action and cut, and one more time.
De Niro plays...
John, I'm sorry, your mic just...
Yeah.
died out. Give me 2 seconds. Machine on an interview. Okay, sorry.
Ellen, Robert De Niro plays Louis Cypher, the Lucifer character. His makeup, the nails, every kind of detail is there. Working with him, we know, of course, that a Raging Bull, he put the weight on. He didn't go making any real deals with the devil for this part, did he?
I don't know. All I know is that when we were filming, we always knew when he was on set, because suddenly we all felt kind of strange. He became very creepy. Yeah, most of the things, the tiny little things that he's added, which in the end make up very importantly to the overall sort of performance, are mostly from him. He thought a great deal. He thinks a great deal about everything. Before he'd even said yes, he went through every single line very thoroughly with me, and every single idea that he had from the point of view of the character. It's very hard to get inside that particular character in the same way as it would be to get inside Jake LaMotta, for instance. But as I said, we always knew when he was around. Everybody said, Bob's here, and you turn around and there he was there, yeah.
His beard, it seems to be kind of a Scorsese mold.
Yeah, maybe that's how he sees the devil, I don't know.
Did he do the picture after the mission? Was that
Yeah.
chronological?
Yeah, yeah.
The scenes between Mickey Rourke and Lisa Bonet, the sex scenes, have aroused a great deal of controversy. What's the latest on that?
We had an appeal last week which we won 6-5, that it should be an R and not an X. But apparently you need 2/3 majority to overturn their original X decision. But the 6-5 majority means that I have the right to appeal again, so the process carries on. It's still very general what it is they want me to do. If they actually want, what particular shot or whatever is to cut, there are no details of that whatsoever. So from my point of view, obviously I don't want to cut anything. The film was made with maximum integrity. It's not an exploitation picture. and there is nothing really from a violence point of view that hasn't been seen in some films, and from a sexual point of view, I don't think it's how it's been done, or the combination of the two. I don't know. It's very difficult to tell.
I mean, the lovemaking scenes in Officer and a Gentleman seem to be much more explicit than those in Angel Heart yet.
It's strange. It's a cumulative effect of the kind of film that it is, I think, which is probably what they're responding to. It's very hard because in the end, if it's this shot or that shot, then one understands that. But the criticisms of White has been made in X are very, very general. But I'm sure everybody will see sense in the end. You know, it's a strange charade that you have to go through, and not something it's hard enough making the movies without having to go through that as well.
I guess it helps just publicity-wise, that too.
It does, in that respect, it does. Yeah, I mean, I'm from the point of view of people knowing about the film. You know, it would be naive to suggest that one doesn't. That's good in certain respects. Except by now, I wish to stop talking about that, and the movie itself is what matters. As I say, if you know in your heart you made it for the right reasons, then there's no reason to censor it. And because in the end, that's what it amounts to. It's not about giving something a rating, because it's almost commercial blackmail in the end. Because it's very hard to release a major feature film as an X. Very, very difficult indeed.
In working with Lisa Bonet, a television actress, again, you've kind of shorn her of a lot of those kinds of TV mannerisms, that kind of Valley Girl accent that she seems to have in the show. How did you find working with her?
Very good. She's extremely intelligent. I hadn't seen her in the Cosby Show, still haven't. So in a way, my judgments of her were only as the actress that came in the audition, and the actress that I worked with on set. And she's much older than her years in a way, and she's extremely intelligent. And in a way, I spoke to her the same way as I would somebody who'd done 20 films. With regard to television technique against film technique, I never quite know. I mean, and I also don't know how other film directors work. So in the end, the things that I say are always intuitive to me, to what I believe. In the end, it's terribly simple, which is that you're always looking for truth. So if caricature or mannerism gets in the way of the truth that you're trying to show on screen, that's the first thing that I will point out. And sometimes it was necessary to do that. But in the end, I come back to what I said with Mickey, is that if you create a situation that is special in itself, an environment for the film, then the actors will be at their best. And so there's nothing magical really, but as I said, because I wasn't really aware of what she'd done in the television programme, I don't think I was too nervous about taking those things out. I took it on its face value.
Some of the sequences at Brother John's,
Pastor John's.
Pastor John's, were they actually filmed in Harlem? Or
Yes, yeah.
The locations seem very, very real throughout the film.
Yeah, everything was filmed where it should have taken place, you know. I don't know why we do that sometimes. I mean, you know, you can be in a tiny little back alleyway or a back room somewhere, and you think, why are we here and not on a soundstage in Burbank, you know, or somewhere? Truthfully, it never looks the same, however brilliantly you art direct it. But to me, it's more than that. It's actually, I have to feel it, I have to smell it, in order for it to be real. Then the make-believe, which is what we're doing, is even more, I don't know, makes the make-believe believable. And I always feel comfortable in real locations, even though it's infinitely more difficult to do than being in the comfort of a controlled set.
Do you have a particular philosophy regarding your films? I mean, an aim or a goal beyond providing entertainment? Well,
you know, I mean, I work within the commercial cinema framework. I want my films to be seen by the maximum number of people. I don't want them to be seen by film critics and 6 intellectuals at a Cinematheque. That doesn't interest me. By the same token, I want to say more than just, you know, sit there and laugh and whatever. You want the film to stay with people afterwards. There are images in our films that you remember when you leave the cinema, and maybe you remember for further than that, or longer than that. I think that I tried to have something which is a cinematic experience, which is not just another movie. Make I succeed, sometimes I don't succeed, but I always try for it. It just seems to me the greatest crime is to make just another movie. You know.
You work with Alan Marshall, producer. Quite frequently. What's your relationship like, producer director?
Well, we've worked together for 20 years and as I have with my cinematographer and my production designer and editor. And if I film in England, I mean, it's many other people actually within the crew, and I'm comfortable with all those people. It's nice to make films with people that you know to be the best at what they do, but also those people are also your friends. Often we're away from home, and you need that kind of support. When they're that close, I've always thought that film directing is a crash course in megalomania anyway, and it's hard because everybody looks at you and you have to get it right every time. Of course you don't. The trick is to appear to be getting it right, you know. So it's nice to have around you people who are able to say things to you that you might not accept from other people. And with regard to Alan Marshall, he's so good as a producer, I believe, in that he cares about the film aesthetically and creatively as much as I do. His job is logistics. He doesn't interfere with creative decisions that I have to make. And he is brilliant at organising the film, so I never have to worry about that side of things. He's also an extremely good editor in his own right, so in post-production he's very good for me to have someone else that I can actually refer to. But it's not just Alan, it's all of them. In a way, it's, you know, the film process, whatever the French say, is made up of a lot of people doing good work, not just one person. And I'm very fortunate to have them, because I think the identity of my work is as much theirs as it is mine.
Michael Saracen, Jerry Hambling, the editor.
Exactly, yeah. Michael Saracen is, you know, he's about to direct on his own now, which is inevitable. And, you know, I will encourage him to do so, but deep down you think, well, it's kind of strange for so many years to make films with the same person, and he'll probably have the same problem. Jerry, my editor, never fails to astonish me, really. Every single time he'll always add something that I haven't actually put there to begin with. He always says it's nonsense, you film it and he's only got this lump of celluloid here, it's either there or not. But in a way he always adds some tiny little thing, which is exciting because it means the creative process goes on and on and on, and it isn't just the director, it's there are many other people.
There's some kind of editorial finessing.
It is, I mean, well, first of all, you know, a lot of directors say, mostly with editors, you're just grateful that they haven't messed it up. Well, they've just put it together with, you know, as you actually, maybe as you intended. Sometimes, you know, directors like myself who do shoot an enormous amount of film, there are a lot of options, and often it's to do with choices and the taste of the editor as much as their actual skills, their dexterity, etc., those things. And after that, it's in the attitudes within the individual scene. Now, you can sit at the Moviola on the shoulder of every, you know, and cut every frame with the editor. Sometimes it's necessary to do that. Sometimes it's nice for me to leave the cutting rooms for a couple of hours and then go back. And then maybe it's taken it further or somewhere that I might not have thought about. Sometimes it's not right. Sometimes it's not how I intended at all. But a lot of the times, actually, there is an addition to what one's done, you know, and I find that very important. That's how I work anyway.
On Angel Heart, when you were designing the film visually, did you storyboard?
No, I had a very I'd written it quite graphically as I was doing the screenplay, and I was going to direct it. So you write it for one's style, you know. We had done an enormous amount of research from the point of view of photographic material, and in a way it was more that which became the storyboard. I mean, I do draw quite a lot at times, but I try to avoid it because my theory is that storyboarding in a way is how they would make movies in Detroit. You know, sometimes you cannot be that specific. On certain things like special effects or very big action scenes, you have to storyboard those because there's too many people who need to know exactly what's going to go on. But in an emotional, dramatic scene does take on a life of its own. And I think however much you sort of block it out in your head, there's always something that you do differently. But so I try not to be too specific. On the other hand, probably you do have a storyboard in the back of your brain that you can either, each morning you go in and sometimes the shot is better than how you imagined it. A line can be read not quite how you hear it back here. And other times, totally it's changed because of the situation, you know, for the good often, sometimes not so good as you've imagined it.
Everything shooting a picture on location too would tend to...
It's true, yeah. On the other hand, the locations were found but then created. I mean, there was as much work we probably did as much work on the street in Harlem and in the Lower East Side as we would if we'd have done the whole thing on a back lot, you know. there's a lot of detail and a lot of thing goes into it from the point of view of the production designers and set dressers. If you're doing a period piece, and in a way, 55 is actually quite difficult to do. Sometimes it's easier to do, 1855 than it is 1955. Remember when we did Birdie, where I was, Philadelphia, we had to put back to like the sort of early 60s. Things have changed, but not much hadn't changed, So as you're getting rid of it's easy when it's 100 years ago because the errors stick right out, But sometimes it's more difficult when it's recent history. But there's a lot of work goes into it, and of course, it always looks as if you found that street just like that,
What street was that? Mickey Rourke's
It's
office?
I don't know. I'm the world's worst at Manhattan, down there somewhere. We changed the name of the street. That's why I can't remember where it was. In Chinatown.
What were the steps that led to your directing feature films?
Well, I wanted to write originally. I had no aspirations to be a director. To be honest, it was writing that I was most interested in. I grew up in England, came from a working class background in London, which makes it quite difficult with the very rigid English class system, which I won't bore you with. But I didn't go to university. And what I did do is to get into advertising, and the important thing about advertising in England is it's very egalitarian. So if you've got a few lines that are quite bright, they'll let you do it, And I was fortunate enough to be able to start as a copywriter. It was the early days of television commercials in England. They'd just begun. And you'd either fly over some American director, or you'd get rotten commercials. So we thought somebody gave us some money to experiment in the basement of the advertising agency where I worked, and with a 16mm camera, and we just did lots and lots of commercials. And suddenly, there was somebody who could work a Spectra light meter, somebody could work a Nagra tape recorder, somebody could operate the camera, somebody could do something else. I was actually the only one who couldn't do anything. So I said, what shall I do? And they said, well, you better say action. So because everybody knows that's the easiest job. So I said action and cut, and then suddenly I was the director. But it sounds kind of glib story, but it's perfectly true.
And this was, you started working with Michael Sarrazin around this time?
Yeah, with Michael Sarrazin. Also in the same advertising agency was David Putnam. And David said to me one day, let's try and get into films. And I said, don't be ridiculous. So he said, write a screenplay, which I did, and it was his first film and my first film. And this was before Bugsy Malone, actually. This is another film, which we don't have on our resumes, thank God. And although you're looking up here, you've probably got it here. You might be the only people who've got it.
How did Bugsy Malone come to be?
Pragmatic exercise, really. Most of the things that I'd written at that point were parochial, about me growing up in England, in London, about things that I understood, and they kept coming back with a rubber stamp on it saying parochial, which was kind of irritating. It was a very depressed period of filmmaking in England. Yet another depressed period of filmmaking in England to go with the entire history of filmmaking in England. And so I didn't really know anything about making American subjects, so what I did know about a little was American movies. So Bugsy really was a parody of the American gangster film and the American musical. And I'd worked a lot with kids, and I had 4 very young children of my own at the time. And when you do have young children like that, you're very sensitive to the kind of material that's available for them. This was pre-Star Wars and Raiders, and the only kind of movies that they could see were Walt Disney movies, and you always knew a Walt Disney movie then because you knew when the adults were in the audience, because the adults were at an angle because they were all asleep. And so I thought it might be nice to make a film that the kids could enjoy, and also the parents who had to take them. But really, to be absolutely honest, it was a pragmatic exercise to break into American film.
And Paramount picked that picture up?
Yes, it was financed in England, but Paramount picked it up for distribution here, yes.
And then what led to the making of Midnight Express, again with David Putnam?
David had taken a job in Los Angeles for a company called Casablanca. Almost simultaneously, I'd come over here. They wanted me to do a thing called The Wiz, which I think Sidney Lumet eventually did, and I didn't like it very much. But I was walking back along Fifth Avenue, and somebody came out of Columbia Pictures and said, they had this manuscript of a book, and would I like to read it, which was Midnight Express. And I read it on the plane going home, and then I spoke to David quite independently. he said he was taking this job with Casablanca, and it turned out that Casablanca were the company that owned the book. So he said, well, if you do the film, then I'll take the job. So it worked very well. And I wanted to do something that was different to Bugsy Malone. I wanted to do something that showed the other side of me, because I didn't want to be put into a pigeonhole, really, of what kind of director that I was. And so it was a definite reaction to doing that.
At what point did Oliver Stone come into the script?
Oliver had been employed by Casablanca, and he came to England, and he sat in the back office of our offices in London, typing away. Every so often we would send in, sandwiches and beer, and at the end of it, out came a screenplay, which was a fantastic screenplay. I mean, it was a terrific job he did.
Now, shooting in Malta, particularly at that point in time, I guess it was before really many crews were going there. It was quite difficult.
We really only chose Malta because I was looking for a prison. I mean, we'd gone to Italy and to Israel and North Africa and all over looking for prisons. We had found this old fort in Malta, which was exactly right, and it was a combination of two locations actually, because there are in fact two prisons within the film. Although as I had combined more than one prison. In the real story, there's more than one prison, but in the film, it looks like it's one prison, but there's two halves of it because he does go into Section 13 or the insane part. And that was a different location, but they were both there, not far from one another, 100 yards from one another, and it was very convenient. It was Malta, English-speaking place, which was easy. Obviously, I wasn't going to be allowed to make it in Istanbul, although I'd been there a few times, and I had to do a second unit shot. Not a lot of people know this, but of a car which had to intercut right at the very beginning of the film. It had to intercut with something that I'd shot in Malta, but I needed a shot of the car going over the bridge. I think it's called the Galati Bridge. I'm not sure if it's Galati. Maybe that's an ice cream. But Hugh Hudson did that for me before he directed a film. But he never wanted any credit for it because he thought that if the studios thought that he was doing second unit, that he might never get a movie. But now I think he's done enough for me to own up to the fact that he did that shot.
The Wall was, again, a complete about-face from Midnight Express.
Yep.
After the picture, of course, you probably had your pick of projects, I would think.
After Midnight Express?
Yeah.
I did Fame immediately after Midnight Express. Again, that was a reaction to doing something very, very dramatic and serious, although Fame has its serious side. But it was the music. I wanted to do something with music again. And then after that, I did Shoot the Moon, which was, personal story. I said it's the first grown-up film that I'd done. And The Wall, really, again, was... I'd done 2 American films, and I'd gone back to England, and I found England very angry place, a very violent place. And I'd always liked the music. And in a way, I tried to put a lot of that anger into the film. I think, looking back on it, it's almost too angry now as a film. And I'm very proud of it, technically, creatively, but in a way it was Roger Waters who wrote the original music. He was screaming when he did the music, and I think I was screaming when I made the movie. So it's a strange experience looking back on it.
You're talking here, you realize almost all your films have been done on locations like Malta, Shoot the Moon, Marin County, Birdie, Philadelphia. Again, really, adding a great deal of reality to the proceedings.
Yeah, it would be a lot more convenient to shoot in the studio, but I don't know. I've never been able to overcome the phoniness of a studio situation. It's very nice to be able to film. I mean, I did a lot of The Wall. We did do at Pinewood Studios. It's nice to have that kind of control. It's more comfortable and more civilized as a filmmaking process, but in a way that might be it. There's something about the sort of masochism of being in some horrible street in Philadelphia that makes you feel the film a little more. It's not all make-believe. I personally can't do it that way. I have to be in the place before I can feel that what we have is truth, and that's what you're generally looking for.
Birdie is really an extraordinary film, the William Wharton novel. What was the genesis of that project?
Similar to Angel Heart with the Hjortsberg Falling Angel book, in that I was sent it very early on as a manuscript, And I remember writing on the top of the manuscript of Birdie, wonderful story, have no idea how to make it as a movie, because so much happened inside the boy's head, so much was the poetry of the book that I didn't know if you could make that into cinematic poetry or if an audience would actually want it. And I was then sent again a script that Jack Bear and Sandy Croof have made written of Birdie, and I thought in a way it was actually quite interesting. They hadn't entirely solved the problems, but they had. It was a very interesting way of doing it, and I got interested again, and then we went back to the book again, and it developed from there. Really, that was the genesis of it.
Wharton, or whoever he is, did he have any creative input into the project?
No, he sent me a videotape of Canaries, which, in a way, I think that he wanted us to get on with it. A film has to take on a life of its own, and although the book was obviously the beginnings of everything, and I hope this, I was truthful to the spirit of the book. It had to be a film, had to be its own thing. You can be too intimidated by a novel. I think he understood that he didn't have to be there.
How did you achieve the flying sequences, subjective points of view?
Well, the secret ingredient was going to be the new camera called the Skycam, which is people probably know is invented by the man Garrett Brown, who invented the Steadicam, which was an enormous advantage from point of view of tracking, in that you could strap it to a man's body. Skycam was meant to be an even greater evolution of that, in that it could fly, and therefore I could actually show the flight of a bird from a bird's point of view, which would be very exciting. As it turned out, we were probably a bit too soon in the evolution, and it crashed into the ground more often than it should have done, and then finally it didn't fly again. So a lot of the flying sequences that you see, the 90% of them, 95% were achieved with the Steadicam rather than this wonderful new invention. A lot of cheating and a lot of thinking on your feet.
Now, you're based in England or in...
Yeah, I live in London, yes. I live in London and I work in America. In France they call me the first of the jumbo jet directors, which sounds terrific, but it's not a lot of fun.
It's interesting that I guess in the 60s British cinema was so kind of vital with Stanley Kubrick and Brian Forbes and Anthony Harvey. That was at the point that you were working in advertising?
Yeah, well, just starting, yeah.
I guess the Putnam era, if you want to call it that.
I wouldn't, but you can.
It's really seemed to revitalize things, and
yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's been very different actually through the years. Individuals have come along. What Putnam was, which was was that we actually, up to that point, we'd actually generated, whatever the word is, many wonderful directors, I think, and always have from the beginning of film. What we've not ever done is no one ever wanted to be a producer, mainly because in England that's a kind of rotten thing to do. Putnam was the first one who was smart enough to actually think, well, actually you could be a producer, and you could also have creative integrity about being a producer, and you didn't have to just have a big posh car and a cigar. But I think that from the point of view of the directors have always been there. We also, in a way, it's not often made clear, is that because of the strength of our television, which is very good, certainly compared with American television, a lot of the good people go into television, particularly people who have political point of view to make. It's very hard to make a political film, a truly left-wing political film, for instance, within the Hollywood system. It would be almost impossible, I would think. And I think that there are a lot of very talented directors in England who do not want to go into the Hollywood system. That doesn't mean to say they can't work on film. They do work on film, all right. It's 16mm film, but it's still film. In any other country in the world it would be called film because they'd see it in the movies. But it's on television. So and I think that that's always been the backbone of what's happened in England.
Do you think you'll do another picture with David Putnam now that he's at Columbia?
Should do. I mean, I'm stupid not to take advantage of him being there. Because he's my friend, I actually value the friendship greatly, and one of the reasons that we've stayed friends is that we haven't really worked with one another, since 78 or whenever it is. We haven't really ever agreed on anything, which is probably why we're friends as well. So I don't know, maybe one day.
What's your next project?
Something that gets me a PG rating.
For Disney.
I don't know about that.
Well, Alan, best of luck with Angel Heart, and we'll look forward to seeing it in the theaters.
Thank you very much.
Terrific.
And there's a high right to the top. And Blue Bomber's block is knocked off.
The one reason I started TVDays.com was to have a place to post my videos and the films that I've been restoring.
Stomach's jumping, and I'll feel worse tomorrow. Ideal Robot Commando.
I'm a very lucky girl. I've got a Tootsie Roll Pop.
This is some of the rarest one-of-a-kind material in the country. Unless my collection is saved, preserved, and put somewhere else, no one is going to see this again.
You'll love Tootsie Roll Pops.
Since the 1970s, after I graduated high school and got into college, I found out that film history didn't exist. There's no way there was a class that you could study film history because the films weren't released yet or haven't been restored yet. Film history books hadn't been written. The AFI had only been in existence for a few years. The Paley Center, formerly the Museum of Radio and Television, had only been in business since the early 1980s. And I went out and I started buying everything I can get my hands on. This stuff one day will find a home. Faith for Today. Someone was getting rid of a Ho religious show. That's about this part here. This other part is Wild Cargo. It's a nature film. Some guy went to the jungles of Africa and started making nature films. This is from the early 50s, some color, some black and white. More Faith for Today. Something on Wonders of the Sea. Have some cool porno. Lots of shorts from around the country. All have to be moved to another space. Thing is a mess of films. Bishop Sheen in the park. Unbelievable. Rare. Paramount TV. Poker Parade. I know you guys think I'm crazy. Poker Parade is terrific. Barn Dance, 35 millimeter. And you're able to get some really cool premiums.
The Joe DiMaggio
film shorts. This is
starring
so
the
rare.
Yankee Clipper, Joe DiMaggio himself.
Time to pack this up somewhat neatly.
Hugh Hefner,
Oh,
who was a
Mike
hugely
Wallace
successful
interview
newcomer
with
to
Hugh
the
Hefner.
publishing world. His formula for
Playboy
success
After
is
Dark.
elemental, and whether you
This is Nightbeat, Mike
condone or
Wallace. This is
deplore
rare.
that Hugh Hefner has proved
Original
beyond any doubt
negatives.
that there is indeed
Okay,
nothing like a day.
lot to do.
He was late today.